Before we start this video, I just want to mention my second channel called Flat 4K, where we do kind of bike stuff and car stuff and stuff like that. Lots of stuff. So the reason that I'm making this video today is because the GoPro is from that. Please do check out the link in the video description for more details. Also, sorry if you can hear shuffling in the background, that'll be my cat moving around. So the other day, I went out with my girlfriend to mountain bike trails. Now that might sound a bit strange for a date, but it's what we did. And I decided to take my friend Alex's GoPro with me and record a few bits and kind of make a review on what I think of the GoPro Hero 7 Black Edition in 2019 with the competitors from Sony and DJI. I'll make a video about how I got my free mountain bike on Flat 4K, but this video is about the actual action camera itself. Before we actually get into the review of it, I do want to talk about the accessories, because that is what makes a GoPro in my opinion. The sheer vast array of accessories that you can get for it. There are heaps and heaps of kits you can buy on eBay, Amazon. We happen to get a really cheap one for around £15. I'll leave links to a bunch in the video description. It's basically, because they're so easy to manufacture, you can actually get them from third parties, and yeah, you probably want to, because the first party GoPro accessories are really expensive. But you can get camera kits, camera bags, mounts for pretty much anything you'd like. And if there's a sport out there that's fairly mainstream, then there are heaps of GoPro mounts for that. And even if your sport isn't so mainstream, there are probably GoPro mounts for that as well. And because these were used on older and newer GoPros, the only thing that really changed was the housing for the camera itself. It means that you can pick up even used bundles really cheaply. And when I say you can mount these things anywhere, you really can. There are 3M strips, there are straps, there are pretty much anything that you want to strap it to. I've got a GoPro mount on my helmet, and there's also like a couple dotted around my bike as well. The cost of the actual camera isn't too bad at around £300. You can get them for $350 if you want brand new from a better retailer. I tend to get all my stuff from eBay, and £300 is a pretty good price for that as well. Now, if you want a bundle, they can come in at around £400 with the full kit, with all the mounts, with the bags, with the extra batteries, which we'll talk about later because you will want extra batteries. You can get that whole lot for under £400, so the entire setup, which I think is really good, to be honest, because when you consider how versatile and agile and how useful a GoPro is, £400 for an entire kit is very cheap. Also, when you consider that filming stuff is generally expensive anyway, it kind of makes up for it. The image quality from the GoPro is pretty good. It's nothing staggering, but when you consider that it's such a small package, the footage does look pretty good. It's fairly sharp. There are several different modes, which we'll talk about in a minute, and I rather like the colours because it's not poppy and over the top, meaning that you can add a little bit in post, and there are certain modes that you can use to tune the image to make it look as nice as you really like it to be. I feel like the lack of autofocus is going to be a problem for some, but you really shouldn't be using this camera for things where you need autofocus. What you want to use this camera for is basically as an action camera, which doesn't require autofocus. So closer elements are nice and sharp, but when you get too close, it just gets fuzzy and out of focus. So it's kind of made for a POV shot, not necessarily a macro shot of, let's say, a flower or something like that. The modes it can shoot at are plentiful. You can go up to 4K at a 3:2 aspect ratio at 60 frames per second. Stabilization will be turned off there. You have to drop down to 30 to get stabilization, although it does come back, I believe, at 1080-60. In fact, 1080p can even go up to 240 frames per second, which is really awesome for those of you wanting slow motion. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about any kind of problems with modes and recording capabilities, because this thing just has them all. And I briefly mentioned stabilization earlier. It's really good. Like, considering you don't need a gimbal or extra housing or a tripod or anything like that, this thing is just brilliant. Like, I really like the stabilization on this, the steady, smooth, super, whatever they're branding it as. It's just plain great. It might not be as smooth as DJI's offering, but considering this is a GoPro and you get all of the GoPro features with it, it works really well. And it's really inconvenient to put a gimbal on a bike, so having this just sat on top of there works just fine, and it follows your movements really well. So yeah, I don't see a problem with the steady shot compared to something like a gimbal, because again, gimbal just adds more money and more heft, also more fragility. It's funny because GoPros of the past have actually had a gimbal accessory you could buy first party, and that would have made more sense from a business perspective from GoPro, but they added it in on the actual camera this time, which might not make them so much money, but it gives them more customers. The design of the GoPro itself is minimalist, and it's actually really nice. It's got this rubber coating on the outside, which I think looks great and feels just as good. There are two openings, one for the battery and micro SD card, and the other for the micro HDMI and USB-C. The branding on the outside isn't over the top, and I think it looks quite nice. If it didn't have any branding on it, I don't think it would actually look as good. It would look a bit too plain, but with more branding it would be a bit too squished in. So the overall design is nice. Obviously that front screen is present on this version, which gives you basic settings like your resolution, frame rate, battery life, and how much storage space you've got on your SD card or micro SD card. It's really useful to have, and without that I think it would make the camera a worse experience. Of course, it's shock resistant, drop resistant, water resistant, dust resistant, and all that stuff. You can find all the specs on the website, but just put it this way, if you live in England, the typical English weather is going to be perfect for this camera. It doesn't require anything to keep it safe. That rear screen is fairly small, but I found it pretty easy to use. I'm not sure how they've done touch gesture pickup or anything, but basically it means that even if you have kind of chubby thumbs like mine, you can still navigate the menus quite easily. But the menus are fairly laggy. They're really easy to use, but they're laggy, if that makes sense. So the layout is good. I feel like everything is roughly where it should be, but there can be a bit of lag to it. And also connecting it to the GoPro app, we've had problems with in the past, especially on Alex's Galaxy S7 Edge, but on a whole host of phones that I've been reviewing over the past year or so, it has had trouble connecting to the app sometimes. It's not too bad now that we've updated it, but it's still a bit flaky. It's not perfect, and maybe that's down to GoPro, maybe that's down to the app, I don't know. But just don't rely on the app in a pinch. Know you can get the shot anyway, which is fairly easy because it's such a wide field of view that you're basically always going to get the shot. The battery life is an area of concern. It's not very long at all. I mean, these batteries are absolutely tiny, and considering how powerful the camera is, you would kind of expect the battery life to be pretty poor. Thankfully, it does have USB-C, and thank God, because I absolutely love USB-C. But anyway, this can connect to an external battery bank if you're using it, say, inside a car, and you can power it off it, you can charge it off of that as well. So you have plenty of options there. But if you're someone who's going out and taking lots of footage and you need that really small compact form factor, you're going to want to buy lots of first-party GoPro batteries because the third-party ones don't tend to be as good. And these first-party batteries can be expensive. So yeah, I mean, it all depends on your use case, whether you're using it with an external battery or just loads of normal batteries. But just know that the battery life isn't very good on this. And whilst we're talking about charging, the fact that you need an external adapter to connect to a microphone is really annoying, especially as the microphone isn't very good itself. So you're going to want to go and buy the external adapter, except look at that price tag. It's crazy. Like how GoPro can get away with charging that much for a USB-C to headphone port adapter is absolutely nuts. And another thing based on the ports is the HDMI out is pretty useful if you're using the GoPro indoors. I'm not sure why you would be when you could use another camera, but there we go. It is useful to have, I suppose, in some scenarios, or if you're a DP and you're kind of viewing it on an external screen, I suppose that could be quite useful too. So what do I think about the GoPro Hero 7 Black Edition? Well, apart from being a mouthful, I think it's a brilliant camera. It's not one of those cameras that you're going to use for everything. It's not a multi-purpose. It's not a little point and shoot like a Sony RX100. And if you're looking for something with excellent depth of field and image quality, go for something like that. But if you're looking for an action cam, just the definition of an action cam, you're obviously looking at GoPro. I would say to go with the Hero 7 if you can get it on a deal. Anything higher than £300 for the unit only, I think is a bit much considering some of the complaints that I've had with it, because you're going to want to buy more batteries and a microphone adapter if you're using the audio from it. The scratch audio is not too bad, but if you're someone who's trying to record a voiceover or something with it, don't even bother. At £300 though, which is what I got this one for and sold it to Alex 6 months later, it's a brilliant camera, and it's helped us film a lot of the stuff on flat 4K. I think it's still worth every bit as much as it was worth when it first came out, because it's still not got that much of a competition. Yes, DJI came out with their action cam and Sony's been doing their little thing for a while, but nothing revolutionary's really come into the space since GoPro released the Hero 7 Black Edition with that crazy stabilization. And I mean, it is kind of surreal, like the stabilization is just that good. I'm sure you've seen all of the footage and videos online and the test media and all that stuff, but it's only when you actually use it that you realise, crikey, this thing is really stable. Typically in the camera world, the smaller the camera is, the more shaky it is because you haven't got that weight and that heft. But this thing's so small and light, yet it does that. I mean, it's just nuts. And with that, thank you all so much for watching. Please do check out Flat 4K. Link will be in the video description. It's a project that Alex and I have been working on for a long time now. And if you enjoyed what you saw in this video, please do like, dislike, comment and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one. I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons. You guys have been awesome through supporting me through these longer months. And I'm sorry I've gone a while without posting a video. I've recently reviewed the Mate 30 Pro and the ROG Phone 2 on Android Authority. I'll leave links to those in the video description. Anyway, I've been Ryan Thomas and I'll see you later. Peace.